Big fluff.
I like nice tits. I always have. How about you?
I like having nice tits.
How do you like having them?
What do you mean?
You know what I mean.
I like having them in a nice dress or a tight top.
You like to show them off.
I didn't like showing off the cheetah.
Why not? I like looking at him there. Everybody liked looking at him there.
Made me feel like a hooker.
You are a whore, darling.
No, I'm not.
We all are. We take the cash, we cash the check, we show them what they want to see.
Maybe you are a whore, Crystal, but I'm not.
You and me, we're exactly alike.
I'll never be like you.
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Murphy.
And I'm Andy McIntyre.
And this is Silver Linings Playback, the podcast where we watch maligned movies and we find their silver linings.
And it's the end of Career Killer Month. We're done killing careers. And we're talking about Showgirls. And we have a very special guest, friend of the show, Molly Regan. Hey, Molly.
Hello. I am the only one here without a beard. I just want everyone to register that immediately.
No
I
reason.
think it's important to know.
Yeah. No reason she's bringing it up.
But it's important.
Yeah, it is important to
know.
I think when you walk into any room, assess, scan it, who has a beard, who doesn't, and why.
Yes. Yeah, that's how I enter every room. I'm just like, who here has a beard and who doesn't? And in this room, 2 people have beards, Joel Murphy, Andy McIntyre. 1 person doesn't, Molly Regan.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And we're going to carry that with us through this show.
But why? I know I have a beard because if I didn't, I'd be giving off like big time Uncle Fester vibes, and that's not a good look. So that's why I have a beard.
Yes.
I have a beard because I shaved it once and it looked terrible. So
You have a beard because we wouldn't be married if you didn't.
that's also true. That was pretty much in the vows, I think.
Yeah.
That was the whole vows. I was there.
Yeah.
Brag.
Yep.
Well,
It was a brag.
it's actually, that is kind of fitting because there is a reason that we're all here today discussing Showgirls, because in the sort of, I don't know, canon of my relationship with Molly, this is a very important and pivotal film that's important to our personal history, which I don't even know how much of this you know, Andy. So
None, actually. I was just like, go on.
okay, perfect. So Molly, maybe you would like to set this up?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Well, so Andy, you know that when you have a strictly platonic friendship with somebody, a movie that you like to watch with them in a completely non-sexual way is Showgirls, where you go, let's just sit down and neutrally watch a bunch of naked ladies parade around. It's completely normal. We're just going to sit here and just keep normal distance from each other and not think anything of this.
Yeah, leave room for Jesus. I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, by the way, if you're tracking at home, had a beard. Jesus.
He did.
Yeah.
So technically 3 people in this room.
Yeah. That's why that's the thing. 3 people in this room out of the 4, but there's only 3 sets of footprints because of the times that Jesus was carrying us.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah.
Really bringing that
Important
religious
to know.
studies. You're bringing that religious studies minor, putting it to good use.
Religious
So-
studies, or saw a poster once?
No, we studied. It was mostly a deep examination of that weird parable story, whatever thing about the beach with the footprints. It was that. We talked about that a lot. Yeah.
Good use.
Yeah.
So almost exactly 10 years ago, Joel and I were two idiots who thought that we were actually were. So we were two idiots who were not yet together. I'll phrase it that way. Who did not realize we were secretly in love with each other, although everyone else knew.
This guy knew.
You definitely knew. And had discussed the idea of watching Showgirls together because it's one of my favorite movies, and Joel had not seen it in a really long time.
Well, wasn't it also I think the reason it came up was because friend of the show, Aaron Fox, who we were all on an improv team with, had a Showgirls themed birthday party that they were telling us about.
Yes.
Right.
Where they made Versastries.
Yeah.
Yes, there were Versastries. Yes. So one day we organized a plan of just being like, you know what, Joel, why don't you come over to my place and let's watch Showgirls? Like two totally neutral friends who don't realize that they're secretly in love with each other, just hang out and watch. Within about 8 hours, we confessed that we were in love with each other, and within 24 hours, we were a couple. So it's a very important movie to our relationship, and one that I don't know, if you are secretly in love with your friend, maybe go for it. Maybe watch it. It's a fun one.
I just had a moment.
I've been waiting, Joel. I've been waiting.
Well, this is your
watched Showgirls
chance.
together.
Yeah, exactly. No, I just had a moment though too where I imagined two people somehow, like, they showed up at one of their houses to watch Showgirls, and they were like, you know what? This is actually perfect because my favorite podcast, Silver Linings Playback, they did an episode about Showgirls. Let's fire this up and listen to it to get us like psyched to watch it. And then they just heard this and like turned to each other and we're like, wait a second.
And then just start making out.
Yeah. So that's what I recommend. If you're with someone and you're listening to this, make out with them. That's yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations on your great love, or I'm so sorry for misleading you.
Or both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not mutually
Volcano Los
exclusive.
Dos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that kind of sets the table for, while we're here. And then just because, Andy, you said it, and, due diligence for what we're actually here to do, this did basically kill Elizabeth Berkley's career.
Yeah, essentially. And who knows how big her career would have been. But this killed any chance of her having a successful post Saved by the Bell career.
Right. She was on Saved by the Bell hit show. And yeah, you could argue that who from Saved by the Bell had a huge breakout career. Gosler hangs in there, I think.
Gosler hangs around. Tiffany Thiessen, 90210, she was big on that.
Yeah.
Mario Lopez has done very well for himself.
Yeah, he kind of went a different direction, like more hosting.
Went the host route.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah.
Lark Voorhees, not much. And I think the less said about Screech, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
rest in peace, Dustin Diamond.
Yeah, please rest in peace, Dustin Diamond. But yeah, this was, needless to say, this was a big swing for her coming off of Saved by the Bell to do something that to make people not see her as one Jessica Spano. And
she definitely took the biggest shot of anybody. Like Mark Gosler kind of went away.
Hey, you can't say took the biggest shot when we're talking about Showgirls.
I
Must
think
be
I just
weird.
did. I think that she made the most intense go of doing something to get rid of the Saved by the Bell stuff.
Well, she did the what I think now is the Disney Channel star move of I want to do as much to not be seen as a teen actor.
Right. And since Kids had only just come out and Harmony Korine wasn't quite the guy, Showgirls.
Yeah,
So-
we're a long way away from Spring Breakers.
Yeah.
And honestly, better for it. Like I don't think we'd be here, right? Molly and I might not even be together if she had done some stupid Harmony Korine movie, because I wouldn't have
We
watched.
certainly wouldn't.
But yeah, if someone look, this is the other thing. If someone invites you over to watch a Harmony Korine movie, run as far away from them as possible,
And run even faster if that person is James Franco.
and run even
God.
double faster if that person is Harmony Korine.
Talking
Yes.
to you, Chloe Sevigny.
But yes, so it definitely, like, the career killer is Elizabeth Berkley, who I guess is as good of a place as any to start when talking about this movie, because Molly and I rewatched it last night, and we're dating again.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But
Congrats.
like rewatching
Don't
it,
act like you didn't already know.
Oh, I knew, but I'm playing along.
but no, rewatching it, she is making a lot of strong choices, I think, is the way that I'd like to phrase it. That I would even say she's perhaps Nicolas Cage-esque in the level of choices she's making in this movie, where there's not a weak initiation to a scene. There's not a weak physical choice. Everything
She comes in hot every time.
Yeah.
That's because Nomi's got heat.
And I don't know if they're the right choices, but I know that they're memorable choices, and I'm relatively certain no other human being would ever make any of them.
Although, if the IMDb trivia is to be believed, and I like to think that it is, Paul Verhoeven was the one that told her, like, she was taking his direction in all of those choices.
Well, the man's a genius, so it's possible. Which
Yeah.
you know what? Maybe that's the other place that we need to start too. I think, and I'm curious how you both feel about this, but like, cards on the table, I feel like people talk about this movie a lot, that it has a cult following for sure. It's been reassessed. It actually recently was shown at the Academy with Elizabeth Berkley introducing it at the Academy Museum, which I love.
The way it was always meant to be seen.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. But I feel like a lot of times when people talk about this movie and they appreciate it, they kind of act like it's like The Room or something like that, and that this movie was made by accident, or that it was unclear. Like, Verhoeven was trying to make a very serious movie, and he accidentally made Showgirls. And at least for me, and I'll see if you both agree, I think Paul Verhoeven made the exact movie he set out to make when he made Showgirls. Yeah.
Yeah, I think retrospectively, he's like, you know what? I probably would have done it differently had I had it to do over again, seeing the final product the way it came out. But I think he was very intentional. Like, this wasn't an exquisite corpse that just showed up. Like, he made the movie that he set out to make, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say there's a term for it. Like, people call it like Showgirls bad. Like, it's so bad it's good. And I reject that. I do not think this movie is bad. I stand by it that I think this movie is very well structured. It's very well shot. And while there's things that are ludicrous in it, I don't think ludicrous equals a bad movie. But I think people feel bad about liking it. And that's now gotten morphed into it's so bad, it's good.
Well, this is, I think, one of the more infamous movies that we've done for this podcast of the 200 movies, because it was immediately reviled.
Sure.
Like, just, swept the Razzies, just it was the butt of a lot of jokes. Like, one of the reasons it's the only, to this date, NC-17 movie to get a wide release was almost like as a bit. It seemed like, well, I don't know that I would go as far to say that this is a good movie. I think it's maligned in the wrong way.
Yeah. I do think we should talk about the NC-17 rating, because I do think this factors into all of this, and I'll try not to get too bogged down in my feelings on the MPAA and the rating system, but I guess the shorthand of what I will say is NC-17 is a bullshit rating that, if you get, is the death of your film. That it will kill a film. And I think, even though I agree with you, Andy, that like it got a wider release than normally would have. It still got a much smaller release than an R-rated movie would have gotten. And I think the NC-17 rating immediately made people feel a certain way about the movie, limited how many people could see it, and built up the idea that it was a failure because then it was never going to make money because of how few screens it was actually going to be shown on compared to, again, if it's an R-rated movie, which I think you could argue, and I would argue, besides the fact that it's pervasively about sex, there's nothing in this movie that makes it worse than many R-rated movies from the 90s that I have seen, like in terms of sexual content.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I think if you were to break it down for like bare breasts per minute, this movie is at the forefront of Hollywood releases over the last 30 years. But it's almost to the point that you get like literally desensitized to it. Like it just like it's just a fact of the world that this movie takes place in. And you know, female nipples are just NC-17 material is the way the MPAA works.
Well, the MPAA are weird prudes who have like I don't like them. They are very mysterious in the ways they operate. They love violence. You can be as violent as you want. Like, and in fact, if you take the blood out, you can get a PG-13 and be a ridiculously violent movie. But they're very prudish about sex. Like, you know, they have the thing with Blue Valentine where it's like if a woman receives pleasure, that's an NC-17. Like, they really hate women and they hate women's bodies and they hate women being sexual.
And crazy that this is an institution in Hollywood.
Yeah, right? That they set up. Like, Hollywood did it.
Yeah, it's wild to me that that's going on. I'm flabbergasted.
So yeah, I mean, those are kind of, I think, the broad strokes of reason. You know, I don't know the broader context. I think, you know, I don't know if we want to, how much we want to try to like talk about things specifically to malign in the movie. I think, like I said, Elizabeth Berkley's performance is a strong choice, and I think there are people who definitely don't like it, and I understand.
And they're not wrong.
I mean, I get it. That's what I'm saying. I like your mileage may vary. Like I don't know that. I don't know. It's like one of those things where it almost becomes performance art in that like no one gives a lap dance the way that she does, which is like a fish out of water that's gasping for air to live.
I am so fascinated every time I watch this movie because I'm like, there's nothing sexy about that dance. There's nothing erotic about that dance. And yet I'm captivated by it because of the pure like athleticism involved. Like, it's not something most humans would be capable of doing because of like the core strength and muscle control involved. And that in and of itself, I feel like should be awarded because it is phenomenal if you just isolate that. But the function it's supposed to serve, which is a sexy lap dance, it is not. And that's what's baffling about it, is that it is trying to, it's being sold in this movie as like, yeah, this thing she's doing, it's getting Kyle MacLachlan off. No, it's not. In no world is this what's happening. But if you just watch her and what her body's doing, it's like, my God, she is a goddess. She is goddess.
I will say that while I agree with you wholeheartedly, there's nothing erotic about that lap dance. You'd never know by the looks when they cut to Gina Gershon just hornily smoldering across the room.
Andy,
Gina Gershon is selling the fuck out of that dance.
Well, I mean, it's definitely one of my silver linings, but I don't know that there's a human being alive that can smolder hornily better than Gina Gershon.
It's just how she moves through this world.
It is. It's just how she exists. Yeah, that, and like, I'm pretty sure that's not how pool sex goes either.
Here's how
that's not how sex goes.
But also, again,
add whatever qualifiers you want.
But here, I'm going to give, so again, my pieces of, if you're tracking at home, when you walk into a room, Scanford Beards, do that. That's just good. That's just fun. You don't have to do
Mhm.
that. But also, if someone asks you to watch the movie Showgirls, you two are going to date or at least have a torrid
It's going
affair.
to be a love that will last
Yeah.
ages.
If
Mhm.
someone asks you to see a Harmony Korine movie, run.
Run.
And then also the other piece of advice that I will add to this is don't have sex in a pool.
Yeah, it seems awful. Although I do love all of the like styling of Kyle MacLachlan's pool with the neon palm trees in front of real palm trees and the dolphin statue that is vomiting water onto them as they are, I'll generously say, fucking.
Mhm.
Like it's just perfect Vegas trash.
Which also, let's talk about Kyle MacLachlan, because one, I had a thought that I'd never had before watching it this time with his hair, where I was like, the time period kind of works out where I was like, is he the inspiration for Bully Maguire in Spider-Man 3? Like, is that who they're trying to make Tobey Maguire look like? Is Kyle MacLachlan in this movie? Because it's the right move, if that is the case. But also, yeah, he's just. I think Molly and I talked about it when we were watching it. The scene, both the lap dance and the pool scene, it feels like two virgins who are not admitting to each other that they're virgins having sex with each other. Or it's like, no, I've had sex before. Yeah, me too.
I've had sex with lots of people.
Yeah.
You're like my 100th body. That's what that is. That's what this is.
So we should do it how everybody does it, in a pool, standing up under a spouting dolphin, normal style.
Those are the things you need for sex.
Also, I'm going to pour some champagne on you in the pool beforehand. Sexy style.
The way people who have sex do.
Like,
Sexy style is 100% something that a friend of mine would have said about freak dancing.
and again, Andy, to your point, where it's like Gina Gershon doesn't even really have a sex scene in the movie, but she just is sex in the movie.
She is in the movie, in life,
Yeah.
in everything. The other weird thing, I don't know. I don't know why Kyle MacLachlan's character was so fakely smoking in the scenes where he was like smoking cigarettes. Like it was just a weird, was he had he just quit and then Paul Verhoeven was like, no, this character needs to be a smoker. Sorry.
No, I have a theory. The same way he's a virgin who's not admitting he's a virgin, he's also a 13-year-old who stole a cigarette from his dad and is like, I smoke all the time. Yeah. That's just the character.
Which
That's the best take about this is. I think we're breaking new ground in analyzing this movie. I don't think anyone's gone in this much depth on Kyle MacLachlan's.
This is going to
character.
change the way you watch Showgirls.
Well, and that's what I was going to add to the theory, too, is like there's an implied relationship with him and Gina Gershon. But again, we never see them have sex, which I think makes it possible that he is a virgin and that she's just stringing him along and like, no, we're going to have sex. Or she's like, no,
totally.
Or she's like, we had sex. What are you talking about? No, the other day we had sex. That was sex. And he's like, when we were sitting on the couch holding hands, and she's like, yeah, that's sex. We sexed.
I mean, you came.
Good night, everybody. This movie's wild.
This movie is wild. That's accurate. But I will, it's funny because I think to the whole, Verhoeven didn't make it accidentally, though. It's got a pretty solid story arc. There's, it's got a circular storytelling device, like a frame story of the guy picking her up, and then that guy picks her up at the end when she leaves town, and you get a classic, rags to riches story, and also she becomes a monster and she becomes the exact person that in the opening clip she says she'll never be. Dangers of fame, dangers of power. It's the arc is there and it's well written. Like this is a character journey that makes sense and is easy to track, and her rise makes sense, and the pacing is there, and it like on a just craft level, the story I think is solid.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's not breaking any new ground necessarily. I mean, this is a like trope. This is, you know, an archetype of a story. And I think the story makes sense. I think it was smart to not try to do anything, you know, to swerve the audience, for lack of a better word. I think was probably a wise choice. So I think like the macro writing was very solid. The dialogue is, I don't know if the dialogue itself is iffy or it's the delivery of said dialogue that makes me go,
Probably a little bit of both.
probably. I would say the only thing that like a couple things I think sort of get left dangling a little bit. I think
Andy, come on, you know what you're doing.
what are you talking about? I don't listen. If that's made you think of something, I think that's a you problem.
So you're saying to the audience, if something is left dangling, it's a them problem?
No, I'm saying to you, my co-host and dear friend, if you read some innuendo into the expression something left dangling, that's a you problem.
You know, to me, it sounds like you're judging our audience for having something left dangling, and I'm going to stand up for our audience.
I mean, listen, I hope they're seated while listening to the podcast. So if someone needs to stand up for them, I'm glad it's you. But anyways, I think that Kyle MacLachlan's character is a little underwritten because like he's never a full-on villain, and he's never like, and he's definitely not a hero, and he like just doesn't pick a lane kind of, and I think that could have made something a little bit stronger, because there's points where he seems like he's doing a good guy thing, but then there's other times where he's just being a rich a-hole, and that's a little confusing. The character of Molly Abrams is I'm not sure what's going on there.
She's a seamstress.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you were like, why is she sewing these costumes all the time?
Okay, no,
that's why.
That's like, why is she doing the makeup and hair and clothing for all these people? But because she's a seamstress and makeup artist, that actually, okay, no, never mind. No more
It's her
questions.
job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get it now.
Yeah. I do think one thing that as much as I do love this movie, there is one thing that for every single time I watch it, the one thing experientially that I do is there is a scene involving Molly Abrams where she has a crush on a performer, Andrew Carver, and they thread this throughout the whole movie. They actually thread it very well of how much she has this big crush on this performer, and now he's coming to town. And as Nomi ascends through the ranks of the Goddess show, there comes a point where Molly is able to meet this guy, and then there's a scene where horrifically Molly is sexually assaulted by Andrew Carver. And throughout the years, mostly through the help of Joel, I will leave the room and he will fast forward through that scene. It is not something I will watch. And it is something that I specifically think, looking back on the what do you do, what choices do you make as a director, that I do wonder if Paul Verhoeven, looking back, would make different choices in how that scene is portrayed, or if that specific scene would be portrayed. Because there is actually, I do think the aftermath of that is very, actually does, there is a point to that happening, and it actually does play out interestingly in the dynamics of the relationship between the hotel and the show, and has a lot of pretty poignant and ugly things to say about power structures and assailants getting protected. And essentially this kind of Kyle MacLachlan's character sort of being like, well, we're not calling the police. Like, he's a big star. Like, you know, Molly's a seamstress. We'll get her a dress shop and give her some money. Like, we'll let it go. But there is a very it does very explicitly take away from the experience of watching the movie, in that some other people I know, and I assume many more people, actively cannot watch that scene because of the way it is portrayed. And you know, sorry to be a bummer, but I can't talk about this movie and how much I love it without sort of going like, that is something that I do have to malign, because I think it's something that we need to discuss in like sort of conscious choices and portrayals of these things.
I think you're dead on with that. And it's that scene, the actual like scene doesn't add anything.
No.
That you could have even like had them advancing, cut to the aftermath, and that would have had the exact same impact and told the exact same story and the exact same lesson without like, and maybe it seems like maybe there's no restraint anywhere else in the movie, so maybe his instinct was, why should we be restraining anywhere else?
Yeah.
But maybe restrain somewhere else.
Yeah. And that is where like sort of the points about like, you know, an NC-17 and stuff, which I still have issues with that kind of rating. But the one place where I would go, well, where do you get a ratings boundary? Where should you put a boundary and people pull back or need to sort of distance themselves? And I would say that is where distance should be created.
And I guarantee that didn't factor into the decision. No,
absolutely. I don't think it factored in at all, because that's not something that ratings boards typically care about.
No.
But I do wonder now what choices would have been made, or if they would be different.
And I just wonder the narrative choice of the one seemingly like altruistic character in the whole movie, you know, just gets destroyed essentially.
Yes.
And I didn't need it.
No.
Well, and it's the worst of that trope of, you know, someone is assaulted like that, to teach the main character something is always not great storytelling and awful. And yeah, you didn't need it, and it's a lazy way to show like, and now Nomi needs to change. Like, you could have gotten there a lot of different ways that weren't that, and they picked the laziest and most upsetting way.
Well, and just that it's like, oh wait, my friends can get hurt too.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, that's your line in the sand. That's the moment. That's the pivot point. Like, it's
Yeah. So it's I don't know. It's weird to say like, oh, it's unfortunate, but like, having seen this movie so many times, I just do kind of have a like, it is unfortunate, because I think there's a lot. I do really like the conclusion to that, of very much the reality of Kyle MacLachlan's response to that.
Well, and there's so much fun camp in the rest of the movie that it is jarring at a minimum.
Yeah. And yeah, I just that will always be my biggest maligning of this movie. So yeah.
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 I don't think anything more needs to be said about that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to malign in general, or do we think we're ready to pivot?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Gina Gershon.
This movie is wild.
Gina Gershon. I'm starting
Gina
with
Gershon.
Yeah, I'm starting with Gina Gershon.
She's the best, man. I love her in everything.
No, she's amazing in everything. And this is such a great performance for her, and obviously she understands exactly what the role is, because it's basically like sexy, charismatic, and also like, you know, just toys with Nomi for fun. Like I'm amused. Like Nomi takes it very personally and then tries to actually physically destroy her. But you get the sense in the beginning of this movie that, that it's for her character, for Crystal, it's just, I don't know, you're new and I kind of have a crush on you. So I'm just
Kinda.
well, I have a crush on you, and so therefore I'm fucking with you just because I can. But it's not. I don't think it's personal for her as much as it's just what she's doing to amuse herself.
Yeah. Well, it's also I think there is kind of a status issue there. I'm sorry. Is something funny?
So like I said, when you walk into a room, you should do a beard scan, but then also it's good sometimes to check to see if anyone grew a beard in the middle of your podcast.
Well, I mean, it's 6:15, so.
Oh yeah.
It's been a long day.
It's after 5:00, so that shadow. Yeah.
That shadow makes sense.
Yeah.
No, it's Gina Gershon. She feels the most realistic of anybody in this movie too. Like, I think that she's acting in a much, I don't want to say better, but more refined movie than I think most of the other people are acting in.
Which is funny because I don't even think she's being subtle or giving a restrained performance.
No, not at all.
Just because it comes from such a grounded place of being Gina Gershon.
Well, I was going to say, I think part of that is that it's just her.
Yeah. I like this whole movie. I mean, there's so much that I do enjoy about it, and I think it is a fun movie overall. But I actually, the last scene with Nomi and Crystal, when she goes to visit her in the hospital and they have like a heart-to-heart conversation, and she says like, darling, how do you think I got my first job? And she gives her the cowboy hat and puts it on her head. And they have this really sweet moment together. I love that scene completely and sincerely. And it's, to me, the best scene in the movie.
Yeah, it really is just like, what I love about that is her honestly just admitting to her, like, I want time off. Like I can't perform now. I can use a break. Like, kind of like, I mean, you did it. Like, I get to rest. Like, thanks for fucking me over, basically.
Pretty much.
I can't decide if you, with that facial hair, look like a bass player in a band or like one of the Three Musketeers. Like you're about to start sword fighting.
Yes.
It's
Thank
one of the
you.
two, right?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's the bass player of the Three Musketeers.
I was gonna say that.
It's Porthos, right?
Athos gives bass player vibes to me.
I was like, I can pull one of the names of the Three Musketeers.
Although, then again, no one remembers Aramis, so maybe he's the bass player in all of this.
I think that makes him the drummer. Just there in the back, forgotten.
Nice.
The bass player's off to the side, even more forgotten. Name 11 bass players.
Okay. Tom. Jim. Carl.
Got to be a Steve. And Flea.
And Flea. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
We did it.
There you go.
Yeah, this movie is the best this movie could have ever done, I think, is be the cult classic that it is, though. Like, as it exists.
Yeah.
Because it's not good, like in conventional sense. But even though the audience, I think at the time was convinced it didn't know what it was doing, I think it did very much know what it was doing, and that's why it has that second life as a cult film.
Yeah.
And it just goes back to the beginning that this is up there with some of the most unfairly maligned, but maybe not unfairly, but incorrectly maligned movies that I think that we watch for this podcast.
Well, definitely like most misunderstood, because I do think this movie is fascinating where there are moments where anyone who sits there and like, well, it's a bad movie and everybody who made it was making a bad movie and they failed, where it's like, I don't know, when she's like sitting on the hood of her car looking out over Vegas and you're like, that's beautiful cinematography. Like these people know how to make good movies. Look up Verhoeven's filmography. The man can make good and memorable movies.
He makes amazing schlock. Like, that's sort of his deal.
Right.
It's over the top. It's not subtle. It's Total Recall. It's Starship Troopers. It's Basic Instinct, you know.
Well, also, I think we need to really take a moment to appreciate the hair, makeup, and costume designers and choreographers who all did create the Goddess show. Like, that looks like a ludicrous but a real Vegas show. Like, that's a lot of work, and it's insane but beautiful, which I would say is the tagline for this movie.
Or the tagline for No Me Malone.
Yes. But like, looking at that, like, all of the costumes are very well thought out. All of like the entire production. I mean, they're driving motorcycles on stage. Like, Crystal is, entering from the ceiling. She's emerging from a volcano. Like, as ridiculous. Even Nomi's introduction and bad dancing is choreographed as bad dancing that needs to be reined in. Like, that's a very well thought out movie.
Yeah, she's all It was one of the things. I mean, Ishtar that we just recorded 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. That, like, it's hard to do bad correctly in a movie.
Yes.
And I think that's like the way that Nomi was bad at being a dancer when she wasn't a bad dancer, but she was just bad at like actually being a, jazz, ballet, etc. stage performer.
Mhm.
That's a tough needle to thread. And this movie, I think, did it well.
Yes. Well, and there was something that I actually caught when we watched it last night, which is because there's a line that the character James, who we haven't even talked about at all, but my God, what an incredibly written, bizarre douchebag that guy is. But where he, I think, correctly assesses the Goddess show, which is basically like, it's the same as what you're doing at the Cheetah Lounge, but the Cheetah Lounge is honest. Like, this show wants to pretend that it's not selling sex. Like, but it is. It's just a facade. And I noticed that at the Cheetah Lounge, the dance she does with Nobody Wants to Fuck a Penny, like, it's a very specific choreographed dance that they're doing. She does
Weird that was her character's birth name.
Her parents did not like her. But they do the exact same dance moves in the Goddess show. Like, to a T, the exact same dance moves. That is so slick. Words very carefully chosen. But
yeah, no, 100%.
Like, it's just like that kind of stuff is really just excellent.
Well, and I appreciate there's a nice visual shorthand that happens with the Goddess show where the first number, you kind of talked about it, is the volcano. It's this very kind of like, I get like an ancient Greek vibe or something, but it's just like, sort of innocent, naked people frolicking somewhere. It seems like sweeter and older and more, like early civilization. And that's, we're introduced to Crystal there, and that's the first show that she does. And then it's like, as Nomi gets more ambitious and is about to like take Crystal out, the actual show that they're doing then is this leather, like bondage S&M biker show with fire and all of this. So you kind of like, the shows themselves are matching her emotional state. And then when she takes out Crystal, they're doing the exact same volcano Goddess show, but now it's her, doing it. And it's just, there's a good shorthand to that of just visually to understand where we're at. And it gives it symmetry. And it also, like I said, mirrors the emotional state of the main character. And it's a lot of extras, all topless, all doing a lot of choreography that's very sophisticated and very thought out. And someone put a lot of work into those.
Well, and
numbers.
That's the thing, is that it's just proved that this movie was very intentional, is that it's, you could miss it on a watch, like, just because you're the movie is so chaotic and it's so wild.
Yeah.
But like when you actually like focus and kind of dissect it, you're like, oh wait, oh no, that they're saying something here. And
Mhm.
you know, it's Paul Verhoeven is a good filmmaker, and he makes good movies. He makes good bad movies is almost the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. By the way, since we're talking about all the choreography stuff too, I do want to give a shout out to Patrick Bristow, because Patrick Bristow he's the redheaded guy that is sort of the assistant to the choreographer in this movie. The choreographer, when she's pelvic thrusting and all of that, he's the one that's like teaching her the dances and all of that. But I bring him up because he plays a choreographer in this movie. He's in Seinfeld as
the wig master.
The wig master for Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And he's in Curb Your Enthusiasm as the guy who's teaching Larry David the steps when they do The Producers. And so I just think that he is, to me, obviously, clearly, there is no better casting for a guy who has some sort of important technical job in the theater. That's might be choreography, it might be wigs or costumes or whatever, but like Patrick Bristow's the guy that you're like, no, that guy does that. Yeah, like look at him. 100% that's his job, obviously.
Well, and he also plays all of those roles and all of those parts. Like he wanted to be a performer and that didn't work out. So
yes.
Like, I'm staying in the world.
Yes. Yeah, no, totally.
And it's great. It's so good. He's such a fantastic character actor.
No, he really is. And it's like, I just wanted to give him his flowers for like
just two guys drinking champagne coolies.
We could be on a date. See, that's the thing. Jerry Seinfeld should have shown him Showgirls, and then they would have been on a date.
Then they would have been together.
Yeah.
And what a great twist for that show.
Also,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Also, I just need to point out, because Andy, you said something that overall, like, I agree with this, that like on a macro level, the writing is good, but on a micro level, it doesn't always play out. But there are some truly phenomenal lines in this movie
absolutely.
that can only exist in this movie. And my absolute favorite will always be Al, Nomi's boss from the Cheetah Lounge.
Robert Davi
coming to visit her at the Stardust and looking at her truly with the loving paternal eyes is like the only way I can describe it, and saying, must be weird not having anyone come on you. Like,
and it's
A+.
It's the way that he delivers that line, it is paternal. Like it's actually like, that's as loving and as connected as that guy can be. I bring up his name, Robert Davi, too, because this is a good chance to sneak in a plug for Hobo Radio, the other podcast that I do. And you can hear you can hear Andy on it as well. We're doing we recently did the big Hobo Madness tournament, and we spotlighted a bunch of character actors who play assholes, and Robert Davi was one of them. And I just think that's all worth mentioning, one, because you should check that out, and two, because I love this movie because his character is an asshole. But I think this is a rare case where it's like, Davi, this character, I don't think knows he's an asshole. I think he actually thinks he's trying to be nice. And it's such a fascinating way that he plays the scenes of like, he goes home and goes like, no, the girls love me at the Cheetah. I'm a good boss.
Well,
I was going to say that, like, that line, it's like, it must be different not having anyone come on you.
No. Must be weird.
It must be weird. That's right. That's the meanest thing most people would ever say to another human being.
Yeah.
In any other context.
And
but it's just wild.
It's unequivocally the nicest thing he says to anyone in this movie. And he is trying to be nice.
Mm-hmm.
No, I love him so much, and I love his performance in this movie. And I truly find that character fascinating.
Well, it's also when Crystal and I can't remember Kyle MacLachlan's weird virgin character's name, but when
Zach Morris.
Yeah, thank you. When Zach Carey, thank you. When they get a lap dance from Nomi and it's $500 and Al takes 200, like Nomi's really angry at him and he yells at her. He's like, "What? Why are you mad? You made $500 off a lap dance." Because she didn't want to do it and you took $200. Like, obviously she's mad. But sincerely, he's like, "What do you have to be mad about?" Dude.
By the way, I do, as I'm just name dropping the cast and spot, because, you know, so many people have talked about Showgirls and they all talk about Elizabeth Berkley and they all talk about Kyle MacLachlan and they all talk about Gina Gershon. But you know who they don't talk enough about, who I'm going to talk about today? Lynn Tucci. Okay? Lynn Tucci, who is the other character that shows up to see her show, who is,
yes.
what is her name? Henrietta Bazoom is her character name, which is amazing. But I love this character so much because it's such a hyper specific character where she is, she's a plus size woman, a beautifully plus size woman who has a very specific trick that, as she laments, only Nomi can get working correctly, which is like she does a thing that causes her top to pop down, so her boobs.
She does this.
And she does a big grand gesture, and it makes her top fall down, and you can see her boobs. But she's just a big, loud, brassy lady who basically runs the cheetah, and she says that she's her mom when she goes to visit her, which I think feels true for who that character is. And in a film with a lot of memorable people and a lot of memorable scenes, I don't think we talk about Lynn Tucci enough because she's a goddamn treasure as far as I'm concerned.
It's true.
Yeah.
Also, for anyone who like doesn't believe that woman would be at that strip club, 100% she would, and would make bank. Like,
oh yeah, she makes more money. She makes more money definitely than Penny. Sorry, Penny.
Sorry, Penny.
Yeah, Penny's not doing great.
Yeah. But no, she's racking in the money for sure. So to speak.
Yeah. So I didn't invent this, but I do love this notion that if you watch Saved by the Bell Wedding in Vegas and then stop it before the third act and then watch Showgirls and then pick it up when Jesse comes running up, it feels like it's the all one movie. That Jesse Spano, after having a terrible caffeine pill addiction, decides to go and become a showgirl and then makes it back in just in time for Zach and Kelly's wedding.
Oh my God.
I mean, if at any point Nomi Malone had said, I'm so excited, I'm so scared, and then like broken down into the arms of this Zach, it wouldn't have felt out of place.
No, it would have felt perfectly 100%. That, you know, it's another fun way to watch the movie, as if this is Jessie Spano hitting rock bottom and then finding her way back to normalcy.
Yeah. Well,
you know, that Pollyanna Costello, Jessica Spano, what is same difference?
That's the real past that she was hiding from. Because Kyle MacLachlan's a weird virgin, so his background check actually failed. What he didn't find out is that she's actually one Jessica Spano.
That after not getting into Stansberry and getting a caffeine pill addiction on her way to becoming a failed pop star.
Is that what she wanted to be? I don't even remember.
That was the episode, is that because they were trying to make their singing career take off, but she was taking stay alert pills so that she could do well on the SATs.
Couldn't Zach Morris have done one of his timeout teas and like let her take a little nap? Can't he pause time? Isn't he a god?
Only for himself.
Oh.
Selfish bastard.
I know. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
what's Zach going to do? Start helping people?
But did he ever try to help anyone else? Maybe he could have.
No, and that's the point. Zach Morris is trash.
But yeah, I'm gonna posit it out there that I believe that Zach Morris could have held on. Like if he wrapped his arms around Jessica so they were touching when he did the tea, that she would have unpaused with him, and then she could have laid down and taken a little nap, and Zach could have just, I don't know, walked around while the rest of the world was frozen.
Just cooling.
With his god powers. We don't talk about how Zach Morris has god powers enough.
Yeah.
And he's
So
got to
maybe
be
this all
stopped.
takes place in the Heroes universe too.
He's got to be stopped. That's all I'm saying is Zach Morris has to be stopped.
Yeah, he conned his way to the governorship of California. In the revived Saved by the Bell series, that happened.
What? What?
Yeah, Zach Morris was governor of California in the Peacock exclusive revived Saved by the Bell series.
I have a deeper question, Andy, which is why do you know that?
Shh.
All right, but we did
did
it.
it.
We definitely did it, you know?
One of the easier ones, I think, because this movie has genuine great things about it, despite having also a fair much of like, huh?
We could have stopped at
What?
Gina Gershon,
We could have.
honestly. And when are we going to do Face Off?
People like that movie.
I think it's maligned enough, though.
I'm fine. I'm fine talking about that movie. I don't like that movie, so
What? Andy.
I know.
Get out.
With the
I
facial
stand
hair,
by
it's really, you know, it felt strong. Your get out, like with your dirtbag mustache and goatee.
I feel so confident. I get it. I get why you guys do it.
Did you just get hired by Pep Boys?
Yeah.
Well, Molly, is there anything that you want to plug? Is there anything you want to make people aware of before we get out of here?
I mean, no. Our love, which is everlasting because of Showgirls.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. Just watch Showgirls, and you'll fall in love with whoever you watch it with.
Scan rooms for beards.
Scan rooms for beards. Scan rooms for beards. Everybody, scan rooms for beards.
Silver Linings Playback is a production of HoboTrashCan.com. If you enjoyed the show, please rate or review it on Apple Podcasts. Hear more great shows on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network.